はい、皆さんこんにちは、ジョーです。今日ですね、また世界中で今注目を集めております、方々にお越しいただくというコーナーをやっていきたいと思います。で、今日はですね、本当に大きなスペシャルゲストに来ていただいておりまして、世界で今大きく注目を集めております、Sui というですね、エコシステムの運営をやっております、Mysten Labの CEO のですね、エヴァンさんに来ていただいております。Thank you so much, Evan, for this opportunity. I'm so happy to have you in my channel. I'm so glad. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So today we want to go over just a brief introduction about yourself, Mysten Lab, Sui, and what the mission of Sui, what you guys doing, and roadmap ahead, and something alongside of those stories that I want to ask you. Is that okay?
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay, so first of all, can you briefly introduce about yourself, Mysten Lab, and Sui?
Yeah, so I'm Evan, been in the tech business for 26 years. Always kind of interest in solving complex technical problems and product problems. Spent 10 years at Apple, followed by 6.5 years at Meta. During my career, I've done a lot of different things, but mostly around programming language and some of the complex sort of system software. Has some recognition by in the space before, probably built software that runs on every phones out there and every desktop before. So keenly interested in kind of the sort of the interface between developers and software and how they impact consumers. So fast forward a few years, so 2016, 17, 18, there was a time when I discovered, kind of blockchain and crypto, and always had an interest in building something significant in that space. Decided to stay inside Facebook to basically leading some R&D efforts for the Libra/DM kind of project. That's sort of my professional career, started my professional career in this web3 and crypto. Fast forward to 2021, so the DM project was winding down. The team were very, very interested in sort of like kind of, flex what they can build. And so that's where I decided if I want something done right, maybe I have to do it myself. So I left along with my co-founder to start a Mysten Lab. So Mysten Lab is a software company. Our job is to build infrastructure that we hope they will become the fabric of the internet. So we the first project we take on, the big thing we take on first, is solving the ownership layer problem for the internet. That's the genesis of Sui, right? That's how we start kind of thinking about what what that should look like, right? That's going to be very different to the blockchain that exists on the market today, and so that we in the process of building Sui, getting close to mainnet. Sui is kind of public blockchain's open network, in the spirit of decentralization. It certainly cannot be controlled by Mysten Lab or any commercial entities. So we're already taking the efforts to help establish the Sui Foundation, which is now a completely different organization, with no overlap of personnel, except at the board level, one person, that's me. So that's the sort of relationship. So going forward, the Sui Foundation is, will be kind of focusing on growing the community, supporting the community, handling a lot of the sort of the various programs related to Sui. We believe over time there will be like the internet, any kind of open software infrastructure. There will be lots of different organizations, different entities sort of contribute to the growth of the Sui ecosystem. So that's sort of a quick TLDR.
Thank you.
On Sui.
What made you interested in crypto?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, early on, just a lot of curiosity. What is this concept can do? Over the years, when I kind of looking at the, thinking about it, talking to developers, understand the potential, we kind of come to a thesis, right? So, I'll say people probably don't recognize, how important Web3 is and what problem it's solving, right? So the centralization of the internet is really, really real, right? If you look at around the big major platforms, the big companies in Web2 today, from Google, YouTube to Instagram, TikTok, to the app stores, right? It's basically big companies, the middlemen essentially are squeezing all the profit. They're controlling distribution, and that's the way for them to make money, right? Yeah. So user-generated contents are probably what powered YouTube. Everybody knows the story, but very, very few really have made, there's very little transparency. The very few sort of creators have actually made a business, living out of it, and you're probably hear lots of stories like that, right? Very popular video end up making very little money for the creator, right? TikTok or whatnot. So that's the example, right? And today, these days, it's even more jarring, right? Because all these platforms themselves, all these applications themselves are sort of being squeezed by, Apple, which lord over them, right? By the App Store, right? Apple can basically penalize like Epic game, right? By removing them for disagreeing with them, right? They tell you what to do, how much you charge, right? What payment you do, they take 30%, right? So and their policy changes have a major impact on the business, such as Facebook, which in turn have major impact on small medium business in how they acquire customers. So the centralization of the internet is actually really, really bad for consumers. That is very, very far away from where the internet started out to be. So that's the problem we're trying to solve. We're not the ones solving it ourselves. We are hoping to empower developers to solve this, right? So 'cause we want to get the internet back to more of a coordination, right? Creators, consumers, and you have a platform in between. You have a sort of facilitator, right? The third party to help you facilitate the transaction between them, and that is the power of blockchain. Web3 is about this intermediation, right? Replacing the middleman with code that you trust, right? So that's the theory, that's the philosophy behind it, and we believe that's really worth solving.
And now a lot of people compare Sui and Aptos because of the language you guys both use.
Yeah.
But I believe a lot of people kind of misunderstand some different concept.
Sure. Yeah.
And also, can you explain?
So yes, right. I mean, it's kind of silly people equating the blockchains to be the same just based on the programming language that's used, right? The concepts are actually quite different, right? So the Aptos team, some of the colleagues we had back at Meta, it's a reasonable approach to commercialize open source software, that's built in big tech companies. There's tons of examples out there. Completely cool. My co-founder and I, when we left, we considered that option for about a half second, and that was not really ever serious considered, right? Because the reason we want to leave Meta to do something ourselves and want to solve problem is also recognition that we don't believe the blockchain, the general architecture, makes sense, right? We think the data model doesn't make sense, right? Token as a primitive makes very little sense, right? The programming model where you throw away dependency information, you're not capturing information, makes no sense. Data that's in the global states, that makes no sense, right? It's going to make storage very, very expensive. So all those things to us doesn't make sense, right? So we want to build something different from the ground up. Yes, we use Move, right? Move was designed by my co-founder Sam, and it's meant to be cross-platform, so obviously we use Move. But even the language, the programming model, the way you use Move, it's going to be very different. I think for people who haven't had the chance to look deeply into the technology, it's probably a reasonable assumption, right? Both teams come out of Meta, and there's some similarities in terms of language. But I think we're starting to get very, very clear indication from the developer community. They recognize the power of our platform, and so we're really, really happy with how things are shaping up.
Okay, thank you. You already briefly touched up on this, but what's the big mission? What's the things that you guys want to accomplish through this project?
Yeah, so That's a good question, right? And to answer the question properly, you really have to, talk about the results, what we are envisioning. So if you think about, people often ask what vertical we're going after, right? 'Cause the things we think about it really is not per vertical. It's really vertical. It's really, how they impact the consumer, right? And how they impact the developer. So if you look at gaming, which is a big part of the early launch of Sui, a lot of gaming partners are kind of utilizing blockchain, web3 for customer engagement. To them is very, very important. How do they ensure the gamers, their efforts are not going to waste, right? How can they retain their loyalty beyond the game, right? So that's one, right? In commerce, it's slightly different, right? It's also engagement, but in very different way, right? So now brands are looking around and say, hey, acquiring customers become very expensive. Engagement becomes very difficult because the advertising model, the data is a lot worse than before because all the privacy policy changes around that. So they're looking at this opportunity to have a direct relationship with consumer, right? Brand and consumer directly bypassing middlemen, right? And then in the financial world, it's all about disintermediation for efficiency, right? If you create a new kind of capital market, new kind of financial product, if you cut out the middleman, replace them with programs, you're going to have a more efficient product, may be more flexible, offer different kind of service. So everyone is different, but ultimately they share a common thing, that is new type of product that's going to be beneficial to the consumers, that's going to allow developer different ways to sort of interact with their customer. It's going to be a very different relationship between the triangle, consumer, creator, and the platform, distribution platform. So that's what it's about, right? That's what we were trying to enable. And to do that, right, we need partners that sort of build those showcase, right? The examples which people sort of like can recognize the value, right? Because very similar to what's happening in the generative AI space, right? The technology's been there for a while, but it took ChatGPT to get everybody excited because you actually can see the benefit, you can see the result, right? So that's what we're looking for. So long answer to your question is we're looking for those showcase example that sort of give us a path forward, this whole space, a path forward to create more value for consumers.
Okay, thank you. How do you feel, how is it like running a Web3 company or blockchain company in this type of period of time?
It's exhilarating because there's a lot of opportunity, and exhilarating also because we believe in what we're doing, what we're building, and it's really, really great to see it coming together. It's really great to see the community, the excitement from the developers, the partners we work with. It's also very challenging. This is very demanding, with attention, there's a lot of demand on time, energy. So that's a challenging part. Fortunately, we have a great team, right? And the Sui Foundation also have a great team. So that, sort of the shared responsibility among us.
Well, before you work for the Apple, Meta, big companies, but they also have shareholders. And then now you have rather a community. Is it different?
Yeah, it's very different, right? When you work for a big company, especially my role back then is focused more on building technology, you're kind of insulated from all that, right? Who cares, right? There are people, deal with investor relation, it's very, very different than in Web3 when you're building. First of all, I'm completely different position than I was before, so there is that part, right? There's a lot of expectation. We also, in a way, how we behave shapes sort of the culture of the community, right? If we're professional, the community is going to be more professional. If we care about developers, and a lot of focus more on the developers. So, we're setting examples. So that all the eyes on us, and that
Right.
part is very, very different.
Okay, let's go to the East Tokyo this week. What made you come to Dubai? I mean, what made you come to Tokyo?
Yeah, the timing is actually, I came this week not because it is Tokyo, because we know a lot of the people are going to be here.
Right.
A lot of people want to meet. We have a lot of conversation with brands and big companies in all different sectors. They're interested in Web3, right? As you know, Japan is open for business, right? And that's really exciting. So I have a lot of friends and a lot of partners that's excited about exploring the space, Sui. So I'm here to share my thoughts with them, answer their questions, see how we can work together. That's primarily it.
Okay.
I know there's a lot of events and parties, but that's not for me.
Right.
But yeah.
But have you guys been speaking to like Japanese companies, or you just started, or how is the situation?
There's been some conversation for a while now. First it really is, sort of we've been building, right? It's great to sort of share our progress with these potential partners so they understand what we're about, can show them progress and result. Building a relationship is really important. Build trust, and you can imagine a lot of these companies are when thinking about kind of doing something very, very different. The amount of effort they have to go through, about thinking they have to go, put into these products. So we're just here to help them.
Okay.
Right? Our partners are essential to the long-term, to the success of this platform. So we just want to offer them the best support. The only way we're going to be successful is if they're successful, right? So that's primarily it, right? We've been having some conversation with a number of Japanese firms. It's just really exciting to see these relationships will come to some fruition, real products that the benefit consumer will come out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you see any uniqueness in Japan market, and then something similar to other Asian region, or like something common?
Yeah, Japan is very unique. I think culturally, as well as sort of, well, first of all, culturally, it's more very thoughtful. Japanese has always been very thoughtful. They care about their value to society, to the world, potentially even before their own benefit, profit, right? So that's very unique. That reflects in the products. It's very sophisticated, right, as well, very detailed. So those are all great. And also, it's sort of more dominated by bigger established brands, biggest IP kind of creation country in the world, right? Some of the biggest IP. So lots of unique elements about Japan, which is very, very different from, I'll say, a lot of the Chinese-speaking countries, some of the countries that have, sort of more of a startup, kind of vibe to it, quite different. Even in gaming, I think the approach, the Japanese gaming companies taking is quite different than, say, the Korean gaming companies. Very unique.
Okay. And then, do you see potentials? Because now Japanese government try to not just open to abroad, but they're specifically targeting on Web3. And then the culture-wise, Web3 and Japanese, a little bit conservative culture, kind of sees contradiction, maybe, potentially. But what do you think?
I mean, yes and no, right? And I think again, right, Web3 really is not about speculations, airdrops, party vibes. It's actually about solving a real problem, right? So if you think from that angle, the conservative approach the Japanese company are taking is actually quite compatible, right? How do you offer, to let consumer control their own asset, but in a way provide them with guardrails, safety net. That's actually really, really important. And I think Japan market has an opportunity to set an example how can it be done, right? So again, I'm using this example I shared a number of times is, well, you see what happened with NFT market, right? The concept is great, give creator another way to reach the consumer, but what we see is the centralized marketplace are controlling whether they pay royalty,
yes.
right? That if you can't even protect the creator in that way, how are you going to protect the consumer? So these products really require different design, different thinking. This is one example, right? Royalty is one example. What about KYC ML for payments, for other kind of use cases, for security, for financial product? What about copyright infringement problem? How do you ensure people creating the asset, on-chain asset, actually have the rights to create them? How do you verify it? How do you, where do you store the attestation? What's the equivalent of a baseball card and the baseball card with its authenticated signature? What's the equivalent of that? How do you attach more information to the asset? So, this is actually very compatible with the way Sui think about, sort of the building block.
Yes.
So yeah, we're actually extremely excited about that opportunity.
Okay. Going back to the Sui ecosystem, what's the something that we can expect from you guys for this maybe summer or something this year? A little bit like maybe too early to talk, but like early next year or something like that.
Well, we're gonna have a very vibrant gaming kind of ecosystem even from the beginning, and we're seeing a lot of the sort of the DeFi on-chain finance, how we want to call it, starting to develop. For example, we're partnering with a startup building D-Book, which is an on-chain order book. The difference here is it's public utility, it's public good, and then we want, it's about laying the groundwork, laying out all the infrastructure for consumer product to be built in the right way. So it's pretty exciting. Gaming is exciting. Some of the commerce products we're going to see, some of the social products that clearly are coming are very exciting and very innovative. They use a lot of the unique design of our Sui. So again, I think at this point, most of everybody's are experimenting, right? In Web3, you can't point to this example, that example, just do what that product done, you have a chance, you're going to be successful. It's about discovering that, right? So we're going to see a lot of, I would say, unique product, and that's a great starting point. A lot more product with at least consumers in mind, solving real problems. A lot of product that with developers in mind, solving their pain point. Over time, we want Sui to be almost like abstract away from the product builder, right? They always have to think about, only thing they should think about is like, well, do I want to give control the asset in their product to be controlled by the consumer? Then they use Sui. They may not need to think too much about the complexity of smart contract development. There will be different tools and integration kind of middleware that help then solve those kind of problems. So right now we're basically starting from the ground layer, and we'll expect to see that build up. So,
the timer is running out. So, lastly, can you please give some message to the audience, maybe Japanese audience or audience just in general, who's looking forward to your product?
So I would say, really look a little bit deeper for the consumers, right? And I think if you are excited about Web3, excited about the different blockchain technology, look deeper. Sui is really, really very different on like pretty much every aspect. So, how the pipeline works to the programming model, everything's very different. If you are a developer, totally do that, but also think about building product for mass market. And I think that's a message I want to convey. Too often, we see developer in the space are only thinking about sort of building product for the degens, for people already in the space. That ultimately limits not just your audience, but also your creativity. So think beyond that. Those will be the message I have to convey.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time, despite your busy schedule. And hopefully, I can see you somewhere else. And also, we wish you for the big success
Thank
in
you.
the launch and ecosystem.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Joe.
much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.